It was a hearing that was combative right from the very start.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
A hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi that got so heated, one Democratic member left the hearing room.
Didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein, not once. When he was
weak sauce.
And also, I want the record to reflect that, with this anti-Semitic culture
right from the start, the hearing was pretty intense. You had one member saying how they wouldn't let anyone filibuster their time, while Pam Bondi seemed to be on the defensive, telling someone they didn't tell her what to do. It escalated to the point where one Democratic member even walked out. They pointed out how Bondi didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein. And then they got into some heavy stuff about her previous votes in the anti-Semitic culture. Things got really wild when they brought up redactions from the Justice Department.
Donald Trump has done. There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that. This has been the most transparent presidency. He's the one that asked that those files.
I'm reclaiming my time. I got your answer. You said there's no evidence.
Trump asked
Chairman, please stop the clock. Stop the clock.
The legislation.
Time belongs to the gentleman from California.
Okay.
But here's where it gets even wilder. Pam Bondi is facing a massive crisis right now. There's been this huge leak from the Justice Department revealing that she might have been covering up details on Epstein to protect predators. Because of this, members of Congress are not just criticizing her, they're actually calling for her to resign. And as if that wasn't shocking enough, evidence came to light showing that she's been spying on Congress members. She was tracking what they searched for in DOJ databases and watching which Epstein files they looked at. This sort of surveillance of lawmakers by an attorney general is really shaking her credibility and could very well end her career. Honestly, it's a total disaster for her.
Your Department of Justice has put them through.
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
Afterwards, several of those survivors sitting down with NBC's Hallie Jackson.
Show me your hands if you were satisfied with what you heard from the Attorney General today. Nobody. There wasn't even an adult in the room that could apologize for the damage done to children. And
just recently on February 11th, Pam Bondi found herself testifying in front of the House Judiciary Committee about those Epstein files. This wasn't your usual hearing. It was packed with survivors, those brave women who were abused by Jeffrey Epstein, sitting right there watching her testify. And let me tell you, the Democrats did not hold back.
There were lots of survivors who had decided, for reasons of their own, never to release their names. And yet you published their names, their phone numbers, their addresses, personally identifying information. At that point, you have to be quiet. You have no choice. You have to be quiet. So I hope you understand the rule of this point. Now, here's what I want to ask you. You're in law enforcement. We've seen all kinds of evidence of crimes. And when we go over to the Department of Justice for the 4 computers for every member of Congress, we see more evidence of crimes.
Congressman Jaime Rashin looked her straight in the eyes and accused her, saying, "You're running a massive Epstein cover-up right out of the Department of Justice." He claimed she was siding with the culprits while turning a blind eye to the victims. You could say he was speaking for many, as evidence really seems to support his claim. You see, Congress had passed this law called the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which was supposed to make the Justice Department release a whopping 6 million documents related to Epstein. We're talking everything here: flight logs, black books, witness statements, you name it. The aim was all about transparency, making sure everyone involved in Epstein's trafficking ring was brought to light, regardless of how powerful they were.
You don't tell me.
I did.
A combative hearing before a House committee as Attorney General Pam Bondi took questions about the Justice Department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files.
I am deeply sorry for what any victim, doing our very best in the time frame, especially as a result of that monster.
The hearing starting on a somber note, Bondi expressing sorrow for Epstein's victims, but Bondi declined to apologize for the justice.
But when Bondi's DOJ got involved, they only managed to release about 3 million documents, half of what they were supposed to. And to make matters worse, the documents that did get released were a mess. They revealed the names and private information of victims while keeping the names of powerful co-conspirators under wraps. Billionaire Les Wexner, for instance, who had serious links to Epstein, had his name blacked out or completely withheld. Meanwhile, the victims had their full names and addresses exposed. It's just wrong and goes completely against what the law intended. And there was Bondi sitting there dealing with the fallout. So Pam Bondi tried to defend herself during a hearing, claiming that the redactions were meant to protect victims and that the Department of Justice was just following the law. But then some internal documents came to light, and they weren't pretty. These DOJ memos showed that Bondi's own team had warned her they were actually violating the statute, protecting the wrong people, and exposing victims while shielding the perpetrators. She completely ignored those warnings and went through with the faulty release. Anyway, now those leaked memos are making the rounds, proving that she lied to Congress while under oath. And there's this whole surveillance mess, too. During the hearing, Bondi had this binder that was labeled, believe it or not, Japal Promula search history. This binder contained a detailed list of all the Epstein files that Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal had searched in the DOJ database, every single query she ran and every file she accessed. It turns out the Justice Department was actually tracking and monitoring a sitting member of Congress. When CNBC got hold of those images of the binder, Jayapal lost her cool. She stated that it was entirely inappropriate for the DOJ to monitor what members of Congress are looking for in their databases and accused Bondi of weaponizing the Justice Department against Congress. She's spot on, too. This is a serious breach of the separation of powers. The executive branch shouldn't be spying on the legislative branch. That's more like something you'd expect in a dictatorship, not a democracy. Now, members of Congress are calling for Bondi to resign. Congressman Ted Lieu stepped up this week, saying she ought to step down. He accused her of lying under oath about following Trump's orders when it came to prosecuting his enemies and about the completeness of the Epstein release. He also warned that if she sticks around, Congress might consider perjury and obstruction referrals against her. Just to be clear, perjury referrals mean potential criminal charges for lying to Congress. So this situation is serious for Bondi. She's not just dealing with political pressure, she's also facing potential criminal liability, and things are tightening around her pretty quickly. Meanwhile, Trump's inner circle is starting to panic. If the DOJ memos about the Epstein cover-up are leaking, who knows what else might come out? What other internal documents could expose the coordination between Trump and Bondi? What other schemes might get uncovered? So, there's been quite a shakeup over at the Justice Department. Trust has really taken a hit, and there's a lot of uncertainty about who's leaking information and what else might come to light. MAGA insiders are on edge since all of this could spell trouble, not just for Pam Bondi, but even for Trump himself. Let's take a closer look at what went down during this hearing and why it's such a big deal for Bondi. This situation isn't just a matter of bad press. It's like a revealing spotlight on her dishonesty and attempts to cover things up. And it all played out live with survivors watching it unfold. Now, here's the scoop. The House Judiciary Committee called Bondi in to discuss how the DOJ handled the Epstein files. From the moment she sat down, the Democrats were ready for her. They had the leaked memos, proof of incomplete information releases, and statements from victims who never heard from the DOJ, even though the law says they should have. They were armed with everything they needed, and Bondi walked right into it. Kaimi Rashin kicked things off by laying out the details. The Epstein Files Transparency Act mandated the release of 6 million documents, but the DOJ only managed to put out 3 million. That's just a 50% compliance rate, which isn't passing by any measure. Even more concerning, the released documents had backward redactions. Victims were exposed while perpetrators were kept in the clear. Rashin looked Bondi straight in the eye and asked her why she chose to protect powerful individuals instead of the victims. Bondi's response was all over the place. She used legal jargon about following requirements and protecting ongoing investigations, claiming they were sticking to the rules. But Rashin wasn't buying it. He pulled out the leaked memos showing that the career prosecutors had warned Bondi of the legal violations the victims were being exposed, while co-conspirators were shielded. Bondi ignored the alarms going against her own advisors to prioritize political safety over the law. Then RESIGN really laid it down. He said, and I'm quoting, "You're running a massive Epstein cover-up right out of the Department of Justice. You're siding with perpetrators and ignoring the victims." That's a heavy accusation to throw at an attorney general. And RESIGN wasn't done. He showcased that Les Wexner, the billionaire behind Victoria's Secret, who had close financial ties to Epstein, initially had his name redacted from documents. So Wexner's been in some hot water lately, accused of being involved in Epstein's operation and possibly even being a co-conspirator. But what's really shocking is how Bondi's Justice Department seemed to have his back. They kept his name out of the initial releases until the pressure from the public and media became too much to ignore. And only then did they finally include it. And he's not the only one. There are other powerful folks whose names were kept under wraps as well. Politicians, business leaders, even some connections to Trump. It's pretty apparent that if you're someone with power or connections, especially if you're seen as politically useful to Trump, your name gets a free pass. But for the victims, the people who suffered abuse at Epstein's hands, their privacy gets thrown out the window, and the Justice Department doesn't even give them a heads up that their information is being shared. During a hearing, over a dozen survivors were in attendance quietly watching Bondi as she testified. A lawmaker even asked the survivors to raise their hands if the DOJ had ever reached out to them regarding the document releases to warn them or to see if they wanted their names protected. Hands shot up all around the room. So many survivors confirming that Bondi's DOJ never bothered to contact them, never cared about their input. It must have been gut-wrenching for her to witness those brave women who had faced unimaginable abuse, silently demonstrating the failings of her department, while she couldn't even meet their gaze. Multiple reporters caught how Bondi avoided eye contact with the survivors, just staring straight ahead or fixated on her notes. She must have known deep down what she had done, and facing them was simply too much for her. And if that wasn't enough, there's the whole surveillance scandal involving Congresswoman Jayapal. This is where things really went off the rails because monitoring a member of Congress is a blatant violation of the separation of powers. The executive branch has no business spying on the legislative branch, period. Yet Bondi vaulted into the hearing with a binder full of details about what Congresswoman Jayapal had been searching in the DOJ databases. Everything from the Epstein files she accessed to the specific queries she ran. The only way Bondi could have that information is if the DOJ was actively tracking Jayapal's access. It turns out that Bondi's actions have raised some serious eyebrows. There's been talk about her monitoring members of Congress, which leads to a whole bunch of questions. I can't help but wonder just how many other lawmakers have found themselves under the DOJ's watchful eye. Is it just about those Epstein files, or is the situation even broader than that? Then there's the accusation that Bondi might be using DOJ resources to keep tabs on Trump's political opponents in Congress, which sounds pretty wild. Jayapal got really angry when she found out what was going on. She issued a statement declaring that this was entirely inappropriate and that the DOJ should not be snooping around to see what Congress members are researching. She was pretty vocal about her accusations that Bondi is essentially trying to intimidate those looking into the Epstein files. Now she wants answers, the kind that demand to know who signed off on this surveillance, who put together that binder, and who else might be under scrutiny. Sadly for Bondi, she doesn't seem to have satisfactory answers because there is no valid reason for an attorney general to be tracking a congresswoman's database searches. This just looks like pure political surveillance, and it's outright illegal. Now let's shift gears and talk about those leaked memos because they are the real game changers. They contain internal DOJ documents showing that Bondi was fully aware she was breaking the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and she went ahead anyway. These documents reveal that the career prosecutors, not some political appointees, but seasoned DOJ lawyers, had warned Bondi's leadership that their planned release of documents didn't meet the standards set by the law and that it was shielding the wrong people. They even suggested a better plan: release more documents, protect victims, identify co-conspirators, and actually follow the law. But Bondi's team decided that protecting Trump's allies took precedence over following the law and chose to push forward with a flawed release. And here's the kicker. Those memos have now leaked out. Someone within the DOJ, clearly fed up with Bondi's corruption, decided to take action and sent these papers to Congress and the media. The fallout is huge because they show that Bondi wasn't being truthful when she testified about the DOJ following the law. That was false. When she said the redactions were solely for victim protection, another lie. Cheeve and claimed the department was doing everything it could to comply with the Transparency Act, and that wasn't true either. Now, there's concrete evidence that contradicts all of her statements made under oath, sending shockwaves through the Justice Department. If these memos got out, who knows what else might come to light? It's honestly hard to believe we're seeing this unfold. There's a lot of talk about what documents might still be lurking out there, revealing how Pam Bondi and Donald Trump might have coordinated their efforts to use the Department of Justice for their own agenda. People are wondering if there's any proof of political meddling, like cases being dropped against Trump's allies or fake investigations against his foes. This leak has raised the chance that there could be one or more whistleblowers within the DOJ who are just fed up with the corruption and ready to spill the beans. You can imagine how that's making Trump's inner circle feel. It upends their belief that they can control the narrative and keep things under wraps. If career DOJ employees start leaking info and bypass Bondi's leadership to go straight to Congress and the media, then Trump and Bondi are losing their grip. And who knows what could emerge from that. Then, of course, there's the increasing chorus calling for Bondi to step down. Congressman Ted Lieu, who has a background as a prosecutor, is on record saying that she should resign. He made some substantial points. First up, he accused her of lying about adhering to the Epstein transparency law, which leaked memos seem to confirm. Then there's the claim she's not just taking orders from Trump, but actively coordinating with him on deciding which cases to pursue and which ones to abandon. Let's not forget the allegations that she's been spying on members of Congress. Definitely a big no-no in terms of separation of powers. And lastly, Lieu argues she's tarnished the credibility of the Justice Department by turning it into a political tool. He suggested that if she doesn't resign, Congress should think about pursuing charges for perjury and obstruction related to the lies she's allegedly told while under oath. He isn't the only one. Other Democrats are chiming in, insisting Bondi is unfit for office and accusing her of morphing the Justice Department into Trump's private legal team. Victims, advocates, legal experts, and former DOJ officials are backing this up, all horrified by how Bondi has damaged the department's reputation. The noise is growing louder and the pressure is ramping up, leaving Bondi more isolated than ever. Even some Republicans are voicing concerns, albeit quietly for now. They're telling reporters that her mishandling of the Epstein files is a political mess that's hurting the party, and maybe it's time for her to step aside. So, let's break down what all of this might mean. Pam Bondi is having a rough time, and it's more than just a bad week for her. Her credibility is crumbling. A huge cover-up has been exposed, and her career as Attorney General might be hanging by a thread. First off, those leaked memos indicate she lied to Congress, and that's no small deal. Lying to Congress under oath is called perjury, and it's a serious crime. There's now solid proof with internal Department of Justice memos showing Bondi was aware she was breaking the Epstein transparency law and did it anyway. Career prosecutors warned her, but she opted to ignore them, choosing to protect Trump's allies instead of following the law. This isn't just speculation or party political finger-pointing. It's a documented reality. Congress now has valid reasons to pursue criminal charges against her for perjury and obstruction. Then there's the issue of surveillance on Congress members, which raises a huge constitutional concern. The executive branch spying on the legislative branch isn't just one person overstepping. It's a blatant violation of the separation of powers. This kind of behavior could spark impeachment processes not only for Bondi, but possibly even for Trump, if it turns out he gave the green light for this monitoring. Congress needs the ability to conduct oversight without the risk of being watched by those they're investigating. If the DOJ is indeed tracking Epstein-related files that members of Congress are accessing, It begs the question, what else is being monitored? Emails, phone calls, private chats. This situation opens a big can of worms that could lead to formal investigations, special counsels, and even articles of impeachment. As for Bondi, the personal fallout could mean the end of her career. Calls for her resignation are growing louder, and the evidence stacked against her is piling up. With the leaked memos, the surveillance scandal, and survivors testifying about her failures, it all adds up to a situation where her position might soon be no longer tenable. She might try to ride out this storm, hoping the buzz dies down. But this isn't going to vanish. Congress will continue digging, survivors will keep speaking out, and the leaks will keep coming. Eventually, the pressure may force Trump to cut her loose to save his own skin. For the Epstein files, this situation might actually lead to more transparency. Congress is not happy that Bondi violated the law they put in place to ensure openness. They might even create stricter laws to ensure it doesn't happen again. There's a lot going on right now, and it looks like hearings might be on the horizon. They could start demanding those remaining 3 million documents and even subpoena officials from the Department of Justice to ensure compliance. The leaked memos have made it clear that the incomplete document release was a conscious choice, not something mandated by law, which means Pam Bondi's justifications for holding back the documents are pretty much out the window. She's really got two options: release everything or face contempt of Congress. For Trump, this has got to feel like a nightmare because those Epstein files are a major weak spot for him. His name pops up in those documents, and his ties to Epstein are clearly laid out. If those files get out in full, we could be looking at some political fallout unlike anything he wants to deal with, potentially exposing relationships he's always denied and dragging people from his circle into the mess. This could give opponents plenty of ammo leading into the 2026 midterms and beyond. And right now, his chosen attorney general is struggling to keep things under wraps. She's being unveiled as someone who's covering up, facing calls for resignation and possible criminal referrals. It's tough for Trump to defend her, too, because sticking up for Bondi is basically backing the Epstein cover-up, and that's politically dangerous. This situation is really putting congressional oversight to the test. Can they make an attorney general who's clearly not following the law comply? Can they hold her accountable and get access to the documents that are rightfully theirs? If they succeed, it shows that congressional oversight is still effective, proving that the legislative branch can indeed keep the executive in check. But if they fail and Bondi manages to stall, it would just highlight that oversight might as well not exist, showing that the executive branch can shrug off Congress without any repercussions. This whole situation isn't just about those Epstein files. It's about how power balances between the branches of government. For the Justice Department, this is turning into a credibility disaster. An attorney general lying to Congress, covering up for predators, and spying on lawmakers. That's not what the Justice Department stands for. It's supposed to be independent and dedicated to upholding the law. But under Bondi's leadership, it feels more like Trump's personal law firm. And let's not forget the career DOJ employees who see this too. They're leaking information because they're embarrassed about what their department has transformed into and want to shed light on the corruption before it spirals even further out of control. So, what's next for Bondi? She's certainly in a tight spot, but she's not out of the game yet. She's likely to fight back, trying her hardest to weather this storm. Pressure is really mounting now. Ted Lee has called for Pam Bondi to step down, and he's not alone. Other Democrats are joining in on the demand.